Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. This is the June 14th Father's Day weekend edition. Happy Father's Day to all of you. A reminder, too, that we have a Father's Day special. If you want to get a gift for dear old dad here in the last minutes before Father's Day, please do so. And I want to thank our sponsors, the Union Club Hotel, as well. Boiler Up Bar and 811 Bistro, and of course the beautiful Boiler House Prime. We appreciate them. And a reminder too that you can subscribe, give us a review. Whether you're watching this on Apple Podcast or on Zoom, please do so. Give us a positive review. We can use all the help we can get, but we appreciate you taking the time to watch us. We'll bring Tom Dienhart in. Brian Neubert will join me, Alan Karpick, as well. We'll hit a little basketball in the back end. But first, let's bring in Tom. Tom and I had an interesting and fun experience Friday afternoon at the Sigma Chi House, 150th anniversary of the fraternity. Certainly one of the great fraternities on campus at Purdue, has produced some great Purdue athletes. Mark Herman was there yesterday as the host of the roundtable. We'll talk about that, the NIL, etc. But Drew Brees, Jim Everett, Bart Burrell, on down the line, a pretty productive in Dave Shellhouse too. Obviously, we saw Dave yesterday, Tom. But fun event at Sigma Chi House, and it was an NIL roundtable, kind of the future of college athletics roundtable that we'll hit on. But first, Tom, welcome to the show, and thanks for getting up early Saturday morning to do this.
Yeah, no worries, Alan. Yeah, that was fun on Friday going to the Sigma Chi House on Little Street. Like you said, that's a fraternity building right from Hollywood, right? As you envision in a Hollywood movie what a fraternity would look like inside, and they had a big crowd and a nice panel. Elliot Bloom was on it. They had an agent from XL out in Orange County, California. Of course, Mark Herman emceed it. Our old friend Jared Thomas, formerly of the Boilermaker Alliance, went to UConn, who's now going to work at Butler. Nice to see him too. And it was a lot of fun, Alan, and I think we learned some things as well. And the future is really up in the air to see where all this is going to land at this point, right? July 1st is the day that revenue sharing comes into full force legislation. What's going to happen in the Boilermaker Alliance? That's still up in the air as well. But I think the message we got overall too was that I think Purdue's well positioned as far as moving forward in this new world of college athletics, and then that should lift the hearts of fans, knowing that they're going to be able to compete, at least with their peer institutions, moving forward here.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, too. Certainly one of the takeaways. And if you have to excuse my raspy voice, I happened to see game 4 last night at the Indiana Pacers game, and those defense cheers were getting me going after a long time, and that tough loss for the Pacers. But I digress. This certainly was far from all the answers. I think that was very clear to me, and it seemed like the general tenor from Ken Halpin, of course, Purdue's deputy athletic director. Purdue's in a good position now. Maybe the dust. I think Jared Thomas said the dust may be a little bit of a quieter period for a year, but there's still a lot to be determined. We saw the lawsuit this week from a Title IX perspective. There certainly are more to come, but at least for right now, in the revenue share world, there is some quiet because the rosters are set for both football and basketball, and that at least is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, you're right. That was another message. There's probably going to be myriad lawsuits moving forward here, Alan. And I guess the big question mark moving forward is not the revenue share portion of all.
Right.
All these schools can fund up to $20.5 million this year, but the NIL portion of it, right? And they now have an organization that's going to police the NIL and it's going to give the sniff test NIL deals to see if they're legitimate or not. Called NIL Go, and that's going to be the element now that really separates these schools. Believe me, Ohio State's not just going to stop at $2.5 million to fund their athletic teams. They're going to have a very robust collective that still providing a lot of money to these athletes outside of the rev share model that's been set in place. And again, that's going to be the real key here moving forward is how much money do schools devote to sports above and beyond just the rev share aspect of this moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's again a little bit of a hurry up and wait, because the one thing that was very clear, and of course we've talked about this, Ken Halpin made this clear too, that part of the reason why the astronomical figures were in play leading into the end of this month was because it was literally a backing up of the Brinks truck. A lot of these collectives had to download what funds they had. So, and I think Halpin made it very clear that this is this is where we are now. And we, in the race, the NCAA and others kind of turned a blind eye to everything that was going on prior to this. They're going to not do that moving forward. But that was part of the reason why there was so much movement this year. There's not that the portal's going to change much. There's still going to be a lot of that, one would think. But also the fact that there were a lot of funds available heading into that July 1st date when Rev Share actually takes over.
Yeah, they were trying to empty their coffers, I think, before they got to July 1st. Because, again, any NIL deals after July 1st have to go through that clearinghouse. So they wanted to avoid that hurdle. So, again, that's going to be very interesting to see how that clearinghouse works, Alan. Does that clearinghouse really have teeth? How many deals are they going to reject? Once deals are rejected, will lawsuits follow that? I mean, I don't know how you can tell anybody how they want to spend their money with somebody. So that's going to be very interesting. We know it was mentioned yesterday by somebody the money that Ohio State and Michigan just spent on their football team alone, Alan.
Yeah.
I think last year there was a lot of talk among media types, and even you watch them on TV about Ohio State having upwards of $20 million, I think, just in their football program. And remember, Alan, that $20.5 million of rev share doesn't just all go to football. Most people think football is going to get maybe $14 million of that.
Yeah.
And the other sports have to get money as well, men's basketball, women's basketball. However schools want to divvy up their rev share money, they can, but football is not going to get all of it. But it's certainly, Alan, going to get upwards of 2/3, if not 3/4 of it in some instances.
Yeah, Jared Thomas, of course, formerly of the Boilermaker Alliance, who now, as you mentioned, going to have an opportunity at Butler, worked at UConn. Yeah. Talked also about a thing that we've hit on, that there was some general feeling for a while, well, wait, the Big East, all these schools that don't have football, Connecticut does have football, but doesn't have big-time football, or doesn't currently, I should say. They're trying to get to that level, that they would have more in their coffers. Not necessarily the case. I thought it was interesting that many of them, they all kind of said that it is some of the Big East schools are not going to get anywhere close to it. They're going to have good money for basketball, but they're not going to be able to dominate it from a rev share standpoint, because they will not be at that $20.5 million, because they just can't raise enough of that money when they don't have the television contracts. They don't have all the things that Purdue and other schools can offer to get to that 20.5.
Yeah, I mean, even the Big 12, Allen, and the ACC,
right?
They're not going to be able to be at that same level as the Big 10 and the SEC. We're just going to see the chasm widen between the Power 4 conferences, if you will, and the Big East even further, right? Just because of, like you said, that television revenue that the Big 10 and the SEC are able to command. And then even the college football playoff, Allen, the cuts of money those two conferences, the SEC and the Big 10, are going to get, are going to be substantially more than these other leagues too. So the rich will get richer and richer, Allen, and like I said, that divide between those Big Four conferences is going to go wider and wider, which always kind of lends you to think, Allen, one day is it just going to be the Big Two?
Yeah.
In the Big Ten, and be like the AFC versus the NFC in the NFL. So nobody really knows where this is going to end up at this point, Allen. It's there have been so many dynamics that have changed the sport just in recent years, and again, this is like a car getting built as it's being driven. To see where it's going to end up is going to be very fascinating. Yeah,
and I think that was very clear from everybody on the panel last night or yesterday at the Sigma Chi House, the 150th reunion, that was a very clear thing. And you had an interesting perspective too, because Jeff McKeon, who was one of the organizers of this event, was very involved with the Boilermaker Alliance for a long period of time. Of course, worked with Jared Thomas, who was on the panel. to even talk to those guys offline, it's like, yeah, we're good for now, and that's a good thing. But we're going to have to continue, as you use the analogy of building the plane while it's in midair.
Yeah.
Been hitting that message for a long time. That is the reality.
Nice to meet Jeff from me,
Yeah.
and even got a greater perspective and appreciation for the work that he put in.
Yeah.
Getting that all off the ground for the Boilermaker Alliance. And, I think a lot of people recognize that on Friday afternoon, too. And Alan, Jim Everett was not there. Jim Everett was not there, he told me, because he just had knee replacement surgery. So it would be a lot of fun to have Jim Everett there. But like you said, Alan, the Sigma Chi quarterbacks overall.
Yeah, we have to we got to give them a plug for that. It's an amazing group of people. A lot of people know this, but some people don't. But go through that list.
Well, I mean, Alan, I was gonna have you do that. Well, you have Mark Herman, of course, Jim Everett, Bob Greasy, and of course the big one being Drew Brees, right? Their stats alone in the National Football League, I think, put them at number 2 all time as far as passing yardage goes. So, just Sigma Chi quarterbacks from Purdue, Sigma Chi Purdue quarterbacks. So, what a legacy, and just unbelievable, and not just a lot of good football players, but a lot of good people too, right?
Yeah, no doubt. We got to get our Bart Burrell mentioned in too. He certainly was from the receiver. There were many others. Yes, the Jim Nuke McDonald's and the Bill Trackmans. The members were a bunch of great Purdue fans. Was certainly a room and you knew Purdue thought it was worthy of that because they agreed to do this panel. Elliot Bloom and certainly Ken Halpin and down the line, Mark Herman. This is a room that's kind of a who's who of Purdue grads and guys that have been successful in a lot of different walks of life, and that was a big part of that. And like I said, we got a little time with Dave Shellhouse. Of course, he was there promoting his book, but Dave, there weren't that many that I'm aware of basketball guys that went through the Sigma Chi house, but Dave certainly a All-American 1966 led the nation in scoring and kind of a standard at Purdue basketball games. Now lives in Logansport, but that was fun to see him as well.
Yeah. First pick ever, the Chicago Bulls, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun talking to Dave. He's trying to sell his book, of course. I saw another picture hanging on the wall out of Jim Needrock.
Yeah.
Former Purdue offensive lineman. A real fun picture. Looks like it's one of those 1950s photos where they're flying through the air, going to land on their stomach. So he obviously was a Sigma Chi too. So, yeah, just again, a fun experience. And I guess Alan said the night before, Barry Odom was out there speaking.
Right.
So, there you go. I guess that shows you the heft of and the clout of who they can command to come speak to them, right?
Well, it's interesting too, and it's not surprising. And I mean, obviously, that Purdue has yet to play a game. The Boilermakers open up August 30th against Ball State. But it is interesting. Very, very positive remarks from Barry Odom, or about Barry Odom from the group. And this was kind of a conversation you had before the panel yesterday. That there's supposed to be. They're pretty off the cuff and honest about, but to a person, that was a very much of a generalized comment that Barry Odom left them with a very positive impression about where Purdue football at least has a chance of going here in the near future.
Yeah, I think we all know he's going to play well to this Purdue crowd, if you will.
Yeah.
Hard, smart, and tough. That's his mantra. Hard, smart, and tough. And that kind of describes the Purdue mentality, doesn't it, Alan?
Yeah.
Blue collar, sort of no frills, hardworking, and Barry Odom embodies a lot of the traits that embody the Purdue University. So I think it's welcome here. I think it's needed here, and now the work begins. Right? Nobody knows, Alan. I've got no idea.
Yeah.
What's going to happen on August 30th when Ball State rolls in here? The number of new players is astronomical. We've chronicled that time and again here over in the off season. 55 portal guys. You got the freshmen. So, again, just buckle up your seatbelt, enjoy the ride, and see where it all lands, right?
One last comment about the roundtable from yesterday, that being Friday the 13th at the Sigma Chi house. But the agency standpoint, and, of course, agent is on the roundtable as well. One thing I would say, if you had agents that were as scrupulous as we saw yesterday, you're probably going to be in good shape. But he made that very, very clear that there's the mom and pops of the agents are suspect at best, and that is going to be another factor. It's a fact of life now that agents are a part of all of this, but the ones that are taking 20% are not the ones that schools like Purdue want to deal with. They want to deal with guys that are from reputable situations. I thought that came out very much in spades yesterday.
They deal with a lot of agents already. Ken Halpin talked about that. Ken Halpin is very impressive to me, Alan.
Yeah.
A very, very smart guy who knows what he's talking about. And yeah, I think, in the National Football League, if you want to be an agent, you have to get certified and pass some, and here's some standards, I think. And that's not the case for guys who want to deal with collegiate athletes. So there's no certification process. There's just no policing overall. So that's a problem, Alan. You talked about those nefarious agents who may take upwards of 20% of some kids' NIL income. And he may encourage a kid to go to the highest bidder just so he can get a bigger cut, right?
Sure.
In the end, National Football League, I think the standard agent cut is 3%. So there you go. So I think maybe at some point that'll become more organized and police moving forward here as well.
Yeah, it's going to have to be. It's clear from that standpoint. If you're going to have something that's going to work, whether this all will down the road still remains to be seen. But the story still continues. I want to hit a little bit on June camps and all the things you've been dealing with. But Alan Karpick here with Tom Dienhart, Saturday simulcast, and yes, it's been a busy time. You've been at Barry Odom's June camps, 2026 football recruiting. Give us a little snapshot of where things are now.
Yeah, they're all done. They had their 3 June camps up this last week, Alan, and they had arguably their top 2027 quarterback at camp this last week. A kid from Salt Lake City, Utah, Camden Lapati. He's been all over the place. Was at Notre Dame before he came to West Lafayette. He's a kid I think Purdue really wants. Just kind of talking to Camden, I think he's very intrigued by Purdue as well. After camp on Wednesday, they took him upstairs in the Kozich football complex and had some additional confabs with him, if you will. So that's a name to certainly keep on your radar. They had some other highly ranked quarterbacks here as well from the class of 2027, Alan. Of course, they already have their 2026 quarterback in Corn Berry, so that's why they're able to focus on trying to identify that next quarterback. And, last year at this time, they got a commitment from a junior to be, of course, Oscar Rio. So my point being, Alan, these quarterbacks usually commit early, and there's only so many spots on rosters for these guys, so maybe they can secure the commitment from a 2027 QB here sooner rather than later. I know, that they're working hard on it, and they're interested to see if Lapati does end up being that guy or not. And they've been getting commitments too, Alan. They got their 12th commitment recently as well, a defensive end from Illinois, Max Carmichael. I'm pretty sure, Alan, I feel pretty confident in saying there's 2 other guys who have committed. They just haven't announced yet, so that will bring them up to 14 commitments in the class of 2026. So that class continues to grow as well. They've got team camps this week, Alan, on Monday and Wednesday. The Wednesday camp is the one camp that I talked about and boiling over. That's the camp that has the players or the prospects on it that really interest Purdue. There's 6 players coming to the Wednesday that should have a chance to about.
Yeah, that's going to be a big part of the big storyline, and we'll have some announcements too. We'll have a little bit of a new staff member at goldenblack.com, and we'll be talking about that next week, and some help obviously in our recruiting, and we're looking very, very much for it. We'll hold that announcement till Sunday, a little bit more on that. Okay, one last quick thing. You wrote about, and of course, Barry Odom talked to media, but 10 days or so ago, but talking about his belief in quarterback Ryan Brown, and it's still pretty clear that that's the direction that Purdue's going. Of course, Ryan Brown, the quarterback that got to start and did a very good job, certainly in the Illinois game last year, had a couple starts, hit the portal, went to North Carolina, came back to Purdue not long ago, and a chance to be the alpha dog in the quarterback room this year. But Barry Odom confident that this is the right guy.
Yeah, he likes Ryan a lot. Right before right after Ryan got here in December, he obviously met with all the players, met with Ryan Brown, and he kind of thought at that point, even when he was meeting with them, that he was probably already out the door, right? Just wanted to let him know that, hey, the door was always open back in West Lafayette. He never want to burn bridges, and they had a good exchange, I think, and when each parted ways, so to speak. And Ryan went to Chapel Hill to, went through spring football with Bill Belichick, and lo and behold, Alan, he returns to West Lafayette. So I think Ryan, and the reason why Barry likes him, I think Barry knows that he watched a lot of film of Ryan from last year. Of course, started those 2 games against Illinois and Oregon. And he's a guy that's a good fit for this offense. And it's an offense, Alan, it's going to require its quarterback to make a lot of key decisions. And among those decisions is going to be when to run the football. Barry said if the defense is not accounting for the quarterback to run the ball, he's got to run the ball. So we saw Ryan do quite a bit of that last year in his 2 starts. He's a big kid, Alan, 6'4", 215. He's well-liked. He's smart. He's still a work in progress as a passer around. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's an all Big Ten quarterback, at least not at this stage. But he's a guy, I think, that has a lot of skills that this offense can work with. And he's a good leader, Alan. That was one other thing that really stood out last year about Ryan was just his infectious personality and how well his teammates liked him. I think that goes a lot when it comes to being a leadership, when it comes to being a leader in the most important position on a football team. So again, he embodies a lot of the things I think Purdue can build around, and then maybe he can help him, try to get a few more wins this year.
Yeah, and that for Purdue fans, hopefully will start on August 30th when Purdue takes on Ball State. Not many people thinking the Boilermakers are going to be, I think, picked 18th by just about every preseason publication, website, et cetera. That doesn't necessarily matter. And like you said, almost impossible to know just where this myriad of influx of players into Purdue's football program, how it's going to come to fruition. That's for sure. Tom, thanks so much, and we appreciate your time this morning for Saturday Simulcast, goldenblack.com, Saturday Simulcast. We will transition here in a minute. Brian Neubert will get us caught up on a little bit of Purdue basketball. And a reminder, too, that you can, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave us a positive review. And we appreciate all of you that have taken the time, and you can become a member too. You can give it as a gift for Father's Day, but also a member of goldenblack.com. So Tom, have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll look forward to your coverage this week.
You too, Al. Thank you very much, buddy.
Alan Karpik here with Brian Neubert, and we'll talk a little Purdue hoops for this June 14th edition of Saturday Simulcast. goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast it's a happy Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to you, Brian, and we'll father of a now high school graduate in Sid, and a great deal there, and we'll look forward to talking some hoops here. Obviously, I wanted to hit you first just because it's kind of fresh after last night's Pacers game, which left me with a raspy voice just in general. But, you were made the comment, you watch a lot of basketball, that Pacers have done amazing things, but OKC down the stretch is just a really good defensive basketball team, and you're going to be maybe just a better team. Your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I think that Oklahoma City was the best team in the NBA all season long, and I think they're going to play like here and there. And I think the last 5 minutes of that game, if not more than that, from a defensive perspective, they were fantastic. And I think that that down the stretch, Chet Holmgren looks like as I said on Twitter last night, a soaking wet squirrel.
Yeah.
So he doesn't quite look the part, but when you see him switch on to guards, keep guards in front of him, challenge jumpers, he was a big part of them winning that game. And it's not an accident. It's not the Pacers' fault that the Pacers didn't score. It's a credit to Oklahoma City. They are an unbelievable defensive team. They've got, one of the best players in the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that they've got a really good group that plays really well together. Alex Caruso is a real winner. And has really completed a young team, has been a really important piece of, taking a really talented core to another level. And I didn't think last night was a Pacers failure as much as it was an Oklahoma City success story. I think that, I think the Pacers needed one of those games in OKC because I think that Oklahoma City's still young. When you look at the Pacers have Pascal Siakam, who's won a championship. They have Tyrese Halliburton, who's played in Eastern Conference Finals. They've got some experience to them. Oklahoma City does not. And I think they need it. I guess Alex Caruso has.
Yeah.
But I think that, the Pacers really had that fervent comeback in game 1 and then won that buzzsaw game in game 3 and have given themselves a chance here. But it was not going to go as smoothly as everybody hoped it was going to after that game 3 win. And I think Oklahoma City in the fourth quarter of that game last night kind of reasserted itself as the elite team they were all season long.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Pacers had that 10-point lead, but you never felt safe with that. But yeah, I think they shut him out in the last 3 minutes, basically. Watching Holmgren in person, he just is so athletic too for a guy that size.
And he's still the funny thing about Chet is like he's still more prospect than player.
Yeah,
like I don't think he's even scratching the surface of what he's going to be one day.
And that's a little bit frightening because he can really do a lot of things.
It's very frightening, yes.
Yeah, he can do a lot of things. All right, on to Purdue hoops. Obviously, this week the Boilermakers started practice. Their summer edition, their 8-week run on this past Monday. You had a chance to talk to Matt Painter. A lot of that on our site, and of course Braden Smith and others. But overall impressions, just in terms of what you heard from Matt, but also what they need to get accomplished here over the next few weeks.
I can't even tell you. I was listening when he was talking.
All right, well,
overall, I think I pegged everything that would have been written.
Yeah.
From the first practice before the first practice even occurred. So it's all kind of old news to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of going through the motions when I'm actually out there interviewing people. But I think that it's kind of a less relevant first week of practice here because you don't have Omer Mayer yet. You don't have Oscar Clough yet. Daniel Jacobson's now leaving for USA Basketball. So a lot of the new pieces that you have to incorporate or reincorporate in Daniel Jacobson's case are coming and going. So really the only newcomers on campus right now are Liam Murphy, who is still limited by a shoulder injury he suffered at North Florida and then had surgically repaired, and Antoine West, who may or may not be a rotation guy this year. The summer's for giving him an opportunity to earn a spot in that rotation. But as of right now, if you had to play a game tomorrow, Antoine West probably would be behind a number of guys. So the guys you really have to onboard here are Oscar Clough, Daniel Jacobson, and Omer Mayer. And right now, none of them are here. So I try to watch practices a lot in the summer when I can. Purdue's very accommodating in that regard, which is uncommon in college basketball. But I'm not going to go back out there until everybody's in town because it's not a complete picture of anything. And I think that, Purdue has to just, keep fine-tuning what it wants to do offensively, keep getting reps in with what they know they're going to be doing, and keep harping on defensive technique with the guys who are going to be playing and things like that. And then once this whole team is on campus, presumably in July, I would have to think that's when you really got to start getting those other guys onboarded. So it's kind of a disjointed summer, but every summer is disjointed. There's always there's as Raleigh Burgess is right now. There's always newcomers. Next summer is going to be ridiculous. Because you're going to have all these new guys coming in. But this summer you have a pretty good idea what Braden Smith can do. You have a pretty good idea what Trey Kaufman-Renn can do. You got a pretty good idea what Fletcher Lawyer can do. Jakari Harris and CJ Cox, have steps to make, but those aren't necessarily summer steps. Those are fall and winter steps. And, I don't want to belittle the importance of summer, but I think it's more like in the weight room, conditioning, skill development, things like that. I think the practices are just a knowledge base, and the guys who need the knowledge base right now aren't here. So it's kind of a mixed bag there of relevance.
Yeah, the world we're living in right now brings some challenges. I don't think they're expecting any major issues. Obviously, Oscar Clough is waiting for his visa to be able to, as I said, literally come in the mail so he can make his trip over to the United States. Is that an
important distinction? There is, and perhaps it's not important, I don't know, but his visa is not expired. It just needs to be renewed,
right,
to get him through the season. And apparently that is easier to do off of U.S. soil than it is on U.S. soil. It's a formality. They're just waiting for the mail to get to wherever he lives in Australia.
And Mayor's situation, obviously, with the political, with what's going on in Israel, is they'd like to get him here sooner than later, obviously, and that's they want him here anyway as soon as possible. I'm not saying there's any issues there at all, but everything is good. But he's a guy you want to get here because he's going to make a huge difference from the second he sets foot on campus.
Well, yeah. This kind of gets complicated, and this kind of leads to a conversation I never in a million years would have thought I would be having related to, basketball recruiting. Is that, young men in Israel at the age of 18 or older are obligated to do a compulsory year of military service.
Right.
And I think he's already in that system. He's done some training, whatever it is. I have no idea how that works. I've never spoken to the kid. I don't know how involved he is in that, what that would even entail. If there's any geopolitical experts or any sort of people familiar with with the military setup in Israel, I'd love to know. But my understanding is after that, you're a reservist for a period of time, and what that would mean for Omer Meyer should Israel go to war, which, they're missiling each other right now. So it seems like we're there already. I have no idea, but I'm sure that Omer Meyer's on top of it. I'm sure his circle's on top of it. Matt Painter, I know, was supposed to speak to him yesterday. I don't know what came of that conversation, but we'll see what happens. But this is, not the sort of dynamic that I ever figured would apply to a Purdue basketball recruit. Assuming everything is cool with him coming over, I'm sure they want to get him here ASAP, given the missiles, being fired at Tel Aviv as of yesterday, or I guess Friday. They want to get him here right away. He wants to be here right away. He wants to get going. He wants to get learning. He knows he can help Purdue right now, and he's a basketball guy, and he wants to be at Purdue. He wants to start learning the system. He wants to start fitting in, things like that. He wants to start acclimating to campus and America, all of that stuff. And the sooner he can get here, the better. Now, whether that means he could skip out on this USA Bas or this Team Israel obligation, I don't know, but things are very complicated for him right now. There's a lot of balls in the air and a lot of dynamics at play. And I'm not really, I've been uncomfortable mentioning it publicly because I don't know how this works over in Israel. And I don't know if it's a real possibility that he could be called into military service, and that could disrupt his plans to come to America. I have no idea. I just mentioned it on our message board yesterday because I figured somebody else would have thought of it. I just wanted to mention that I am aware of this potential dynamic. I am trying to find out, but nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. So Purdue's trying to figure it out too. Omer Meyer's probably trying to figure it out too. And I guess we'll just kind of wait and see. But kind of an uncommon situation.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, team camps this week. You were there at one on Friday. bring us a little bit up to date on what your takeaways for that. I know you've been writing that on the message boards as well, but and obviously, and I don't know if there are any. Are they done with them now for next week, or do they have anything else coming up? But
nothing else next
week. Any other breakdown? I know Isaiah Hill also in the discussion as well.
Yeah, so obviously Isaiah Hill is Purdue's top 2027 target, one of many established 2027 targets, a guy who Purdue's been way out in front on because they're still recruiting high school players, whereas everybody else is chasing transfers and whatnot. So Purdue, obviously, it's always a good thing to have guys like that on your campus. But the story yesterday was Noah Smith from Plainfield, this four-man who I've kind of covered as kind of a Purdue recruiting adjacent sort of player, just because I think he's good. And sometimes I just cover guys because I think they're good enough. And sometimes I'm covering guys before Purdue's really involved in them, with them. And I think Purdue's had a presence with Noah Smith for the longest time. They've not really seen him much in person. He doesn't play on either of the two major circuits, so they couldn't get to see him in the open period. So having him at this team camp yesterday gave them an opportunity to see him in person. Matt Painter was at 2 of his 3 games, the second of which he scored 27 points in a blowout win over Westfield. The first of which he played against Pike, and Isaiah Hill played very well. And this is an offer type of situation now. He played well enough yesterday, and he showed enough of a skill level, I think Purdue can, offer him in good conscience should it decide to do so. I don't think that there's a whole lot of question there anymore. So this was a potentially very newsy day. Now, he's a 4-man, and you've got some other balls in the air from a 4-man perspective. Now, can you take him and another one of these 4 guys, 4 men that you've been recruiting forever? If it were me, absolutely, I would say yes. I do view Noah Smith as more of a long-term guy than a short-term guy, and you have to take somebody who can help you right away next season, because you're losing Trey Kaufman at the 4, you're losing Liam Murphy at the 4. Part of the reason they're going to be cross-training Jack Benner, I think, at the 4 position this year too, is to see if that's somewhere he can fit in long-term, even though he's more of a guard than he is a forward. But I just don't know if you can. They have to make a decision, I should say, if they can take 2 high school 4-men. Yeah. Probably going to look for transfer help in that regard too. But I think that's something they should do. If it were me, and
that's a qualifier.
I start a lot of sentences that way because I think I know the process well enough to be a blowhard about what I would do if I were them. Is I would, every other year, I would take a guy who's good enough, who's intriguing enough, like a Mac offer level guy who could develop. And I would take that guy and I would tell him, you are coming here, you are redshirting. We have revenue sharing now, so we are basically paying you to redshirt. And I would make sure that there's always a guy or 2 like that in the pipeline. That way you lose a guy in the spring, you're never short on numbers. You could be short on a position because you don't know necessarily what positions you've got these red shirts coming out of, but you're at least backfilling your roster real time. You're getting guys to develop, you're getting guys to know your system, and you don't fall short on numbers necessarily. You got to be ready for spring departures. That's the name of the game nowadays. And if I were Purdue, I would look at a guy like Noah Smith. I would look at a guy like a Carry-On Berry at Avon, who was at camp again yesterday, and just say, hey, let's take this guy and let's be straightforward with him up front, as Matt Painter always is, and say, you are redshirting. This is predetermined. You are not playing. So come November, come December, you need to be working still. You need to be working your ass off still to get better, but you are not going to set foot on the floor. So the practices are your games, and you can show us what you're made of by how you practice, how you develop, how you work, and we'll see what happens. If you don't articulate this up front, but you say, the unspoken part of it is, if you come out of your redshirt year and, there's not playing time there for you and you want to go somewhere else and play, whatever, that's fine. But it just seems to make sense to do that. And I don't know what Purdue's approach will be to all of this, but I guarantee you Matt Painter will not have 13, 14, 15 guys on his roster thinking they're going to play. He's not going to be that way. He's going to be honest with guys he brings in. And he just, from a team harmony perspective, that's always the way he is. But I think it just makes sense to bring guys in on predetermined redshirt plans nowadays. And again, you're paying them to be on the team, so it's not that bad a deal. Now, being on full scholarship at Toledo, is that better than being on full scholarship and getting paid at Purdue? Yes, it is. In my opinion, but we'll see. And I don't know why I'm picking on Toledo here. I also think I'm kind of using this. I'm using Noah Smith as the face of this. I think Noah Smith's better than a MAC player. I think he's a high major guy, but I don't think he's a high major guy who can win for you at Purdue right away. I think he's a guy who's going to need time to work on his body, things like that. And it's just the perfect redshirt guy. I'm speculating here. This is all speculation. So, but no, it just makes sense to have an extra guy or two milling around in your program on your roster to, potentially move up if needed and to safeguard you against potential number shortages.
Yeah. All right. Last one to hit briefly on Purdue's 7'3" Italian visitor. I think is going to maybe tomorrow. You pronounce Luis Suigo, and is that we're guessing a little bit.
I'm calling him Suigo. It might be Suijo, something like that. But I wish I had. I'm going to have to find ways to figure out how to pronounce these names.
Yeah.
If Purdue's going to keep recruiting internationally, but Purdue's going straight to Olive Garden, I'm sure, once they get once they get him on campus. He's a 7'3" multi-skilled center. I think they've done their due diligence on a lot of international guys. I know Sasha Stefanovic went over to Milan a few weeks back to see him specifically, so they have at least somebody on their staff has seen him in person. With international guys, you always want to gauge their physicality, their toughness, things like that. With 7'3" guys, you always want to gauge their physicality, their toughness, things like that. But he is tall, very tall. He is very big. He is very skilled. And Purdue does want a center in this class. So he has an offer. He's visiting in the summer, which suggests that he is a priority for Purdue. He's also visiting Illinois and Indiana and potentially others as far as I know. But he's visiting those three this week. He's coming over here taking 3 back-to-back visits as far as I know. And then whether he decides soon thereafter, I don't know. Maybe not. But he would be he's one of the guys that Purdue's dead serious about in 2026. It sure seems like.
Yeah, and a class that's going to be an important one and potentially a large one too, as things continue to move forward. All right, Brian. Hey, we appreciate. We'll look forward to your work next week. We look forward to it every week, and we'll work on our pronunciations and international diplomacy and all the things that are going on that are going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out for Purdue. So
what we need is an overseas correspondent.
Well, you could be that guy. Yeah, we'll send you over there.
Well, I'm not going over there right now. Not right now.
No, I know. No, I don't think anybody wants to go over there right now. All right, have a good rest of your weekend. Happy Father's Day to you, and also to
thank you.
And we will look forward to more this week. More coverage certainly on goldandblack.com. All right, I want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel, Boiler House Prime Restaurant, a great place to visit for Father's Day as well. We're grateful for their sponsorship. Want to remind folks that you can subscribe to goldenblack.com. It's a novel idea. We have specials going on, too, for gift subscriptions. If you want to take care of dear old dad or take care of yourself, by all means, do that. We'll have that in the notes section here. And a reminder, too, to leave us a positive review. If you don't want to leave us a positive review, you can keep it to yourself, but certainly on Apple Podcasts, and certainly on YouTube as well. We would appreciate that too. So have a great rest of your weekend. Happy Father's Day all to everyone, and we will see you next week on Saturday, goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast, and of course, obviously, we'll have our Tuesday Gold and Black Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody.